Hi everyone! Today we're going to be diving into the history of one of the most iconic characters in the Animal Crossing series. Tom Nook has become one of Nintendo's most recognizable characters ever since he first appeared in Animal Crossing for the GameCube in 2001. Not only has his character inspired years worth of fan art, fanfiction, spooky stories, and a ton of videos and memes that are still shared to this day, but he is arguably the character who plays the most important role in all of the Animal Crossing games. It's said that a lot of people view Tom Nook in either one of two lights. You either love him or you hate him. However, I find that a lot of players, especially those who came into the Animal Crossing series through New Horizons, may be missing a big chunk of information about why that is. So today, I'm going to be telling you all about Tom Nook's entire backstory. So grab a cup of tea, get cozy, and let's talk about one of my favourite video game characters of all time, Tom Nook. Tom Nook is termed as a raccoon in the Western versions of the game, but a tanuki in the Japanese version. It's important to note this, as tanuki have a ton of legends and folktales surrounding them, which helped inspire a lot of Tom Nook's character. Baka tanuki are a kind of supernatural being found in the classics and in the folklore and legends of various places in Japan, and they're most commonly associated with tanuki. Although the tanuki is a real animal, referred to as a raccoon dog in English, the tanuki that appears in literature has always been depicted as a strange, even supernatural animal. In some regions of Japan, they are said to have abilities similar to those attributed to foxes or kitsune, for example shape-shifting into other things or people, and even possessing human beings. You can see other tanuki representations in Japanese media. Possibly the most popular one we have in the West is Studio Ghibli's movie Pompoko, and whilst the premise of this movie features a group of tanuki who use their shape-shifting powers to defend their habitat against human developers, if you've actually given it a watch, you may have seen that at some parts of the movie they create items from little leaves. Doesn't that seem familiar? And speaking of Tom Nook being a tanuki, I thought now would be a good time to mention that there's a very funny quote from Tom Nook in the games where he mentions his ancestors having their very own language. Now, I'm not going to try to read this out loud because it's incredibly hard to say, but I just love this quote from him. Well, back to Tom Nook's early life. Tom Nook was born and raised in a quaint village, and from a young age he showed a keen interest in business and entrepreneurship. He's expressed in some of the games how he grew up extremely poor, and at one point had to live inside a simple tree stump while struggling to get by. Growing up so poor and struggling had a big impact on Tom's goals for his future, as it inspired Tom to work incredibly hard, and is most likely his main reasoning behind wanting to collect and earn as many bells as possible, and to make a good life for himself. Not all was bad in Tom Nook's early years though. He had great friends by his side, who you will recognise as the Able sisters. When talking with Sable, she will tell you, well, we shared a lot of good times, Tom Nook and I, before there was an observatory in our dear old town. We used to climb up the roof when we wanted to look at the stars. Oh yes, we even made constellations together. I remember, I made one called the Star Shirt. Tom Nook's looked like one of those old-time markets. He called it the Farmer's Market Bargain Bin Constellation. Oh, that takes me back. Tom was around when the Able sisters' parents tragically passed away, and so he was around to help Sable after Laybell moved away to the city, and she was left to raise Mabel all on her own. He was a good friend to them during their early years of struggle, and formed a very special bond with Sable in particular. In Wild World, if the player continues to speak to Sable often, you may encounter an event where she's feeling sad around wintertime. If befriended, she would tell the player about how she and Tom Nook were childhood friends. Sable describes Tom Nook as once having such a pure spirit that others thought it would prevent him from fulfilling his dreams outside of their rural home, saying, well, the first letter I got from him arrived at just around this time of year. The other day before bed, I pulled that letter out and just looked at it. It was adorable. Sure, the handwriting was a little messy, but you could hear his determination in every word of that letter. Sweet young Tom Nook. His call to arms, his ethos, was dreams before money. He was so pure that people wondered if he'd survive this crazy old world. I did too. Every night before falling asleep, I would wish for him. Please keep Tom Nook's pure spirit protected, I'd whisper in the darkness. Keep him safe from the apathy that breeds in the alleys of the big city. And so, the story goes that one day, Tom Nook decided to leave their little town and go off to pursue his dreams in the big city. Tom moves to the city to try and start a successful business career. Whilst Tom is away in the city, he sends Sable a very sweet birthday gift in the mail. A pair of orange scissors, perfect for her to use while sewing. Sable describes these as the best scissors she's ever had. At the time, Sable was so preoccupied with taking care of Mabel that she had forgotten her own birthday. But of course, Tom Nook remembered and sent her a gift to try and make the day special for her. Sable mentions that at the time, Tom Nook's life seemed very hard in the city and that his job was paying him really poorly, so the fact that he remembered her birthday and bought such a sweet gift for her made her so happy that she would cry every time she thought about it. Sable seems to care about Tom Nook an incredible amount, and it's a really good idea to take Sable's opinion in good faith, as she's an incredibly private and shy character, so it takes a lot to even get her to open up to you, let alone earn trust with her. So the fact that Sable speaks so highly of Tom really does show his kind-heartedness. And fun fact, if you talk to Sable in Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, she will tell you about how she believes Tom Nook has a wonderful singing voice. Just another thing to love about Mr. Nook. So, back to Tom in the big city. We learn from dialogue in the games that Tom Nook's big dreams of success were broken by city life. There's not too much detail given on this, but it's easy to assume that Tom Nook's business ventures didn't take off, and that he was treated poorly by some of the city folk. At some point in the past, he met and worked with Red as a business partner, and later on described this time as tragic, without giving many details. It's clear that something terrible happened during their time working together, and it was something so regretful for Tom that we have still never discovered the true details of it today. It's speculated that, given Red's occupation, it's likely that he roped Tom into a scam of some sort, and ended up throwing him under the bus when they got caught. Ever since then, Red has viewed Tom as some sort of business rival, and has been in constant competition with him. You'll notice their similar outfits in the games, and even similar symbols used in their shops. Another fun hidden detail is how Red's theme music in the original game is almost the exact same as Tom's theme music, but it was clearly created to have a more trickster type evil sound to it. It seems as though Red and Tom are two sides of the same coin, but both chose to take different paths in life. Whilst Tom decided to learn from his mistakes, head back to his small town and try his best to be a respected and generous businessman, Red chose a life of travelling around, lying and trying to scam others for their money. Some of the animal villagers' dialogue can show them gossiping about Tom Nook's potential illicit activities that he could have been doing during his time working with Red, so we can only admire him for deciding to stay away from him in the end. But the mystery still remains today of what actually happened between them. Sometimes, upon entering his store, Tom Nook will appear in full and may tell the player a story of his life in the city. Here is the full quotation. "Well, actually, I was just thinking about the good old days, I know it seems that the world is my oyster, but with my fine shop. But in my childhood, I lived the kind of life you couldn't even imagine. Yes, but this was all some time ago, before I moved to this town, Of course, I was born in our lovely town, but I moved away for a time. Yes, the city years, I like to call them. I was a raccoon of action, The big city certainly had its charms, but it had its pitfalls as well. Indeed, I had to endure certain hardships that I've never spoken of, Hard to believe, yes? You're probably asking yourself, what the heck is Nook talking about, For now, maybe it's best that we forget we ever talked about this. At some point during his time in the city, Tom Nook eventually comes across Timmy and Tommy. Now these two are often perceived to be Tom Nook's nephews, as he treats them as such, but it's actually a fact that both Timmy and Tommy are orphans, and that Tom Nook adopted them because they took an interest in business life. I personally believe that Tom Nook may have seen a part of his younger self in these sweet boys, and actually just desired to protect them from the harshness of city life. In Wild World, certain jock or lazy villagers will tell of a rumour that Tom Nook found them in the streets and raised them by himself. And in New Horizons, Tom Nook will explain to the player that he wanted to adopt them to teach them good economic principles in order to help them from suffering the same pitfalls he did when growing up. If you build a home for the Nooklings in Happy Home Designer, Tommy will express, "Sometimes I think this house is too fancy for me and Timmy. We come from a humble background, yes? But then I look around and think we've worked hard to earn the right to live in such a palace." It's clear that the Nooklings are not only grateful for Tom giving them a better life, but also really admire Tom as not only their mentor, but also as an uncle or father figure in their life, since they imitate his speech and they always speak kindly of him throughout the series. It's also worth noting that it's likely that at some point during his time in the city, Tom made friends with Blathers too. Blathers tells us in earlier games that he was once living in the city studying, and this is actually where he met his good friend Brewster. You can even see a photo of them in the city together inside the Roost in New Horizons. This is likely where Tom and Blathers became friends. We can see Tom call Blathers on the phone in New Horizons, and Tom has always seemed to support the museum and respected Blathers and Brewster too. And speaking of Tom Nook's friends, Rover and Tom are also known to be good buddies. And actually, if you invite Rover to the Roost in New Horizons, he'll bring Tom Nook along and they'll reminisce about their past and bring up references from all the previous games. We can't be too sure, but in New Leaf, Digby states that Isabel has engineering degrees from 19 different universities, so it's possible possible that Tom may have met Digby and Isabel during his time in the city too, although there isn't much evidence to support this, as it's speculated that Tom is around his mid-30s to 40 years old, and these two characters are definitely portrayed to be a little bit younger than that. But it remains that Isabel and Digby both have positive relationships with Tom, and it seems as though Blathers, Brewster, Celeste, Rover, and basically all the other main NPCs in the Animal Crossing series have very good opinions of Tom, and are generally very friendly with him. Although we can't say the same for Red, and maybe even Dr. Shrunk, who in one of his jokes talks about how we all wear masks, and then goes on to say that Tom Nook wears a raccoon suit, but it serves the same general purpose. It's not certain whether Shrunk meant to make a direct jab at Nook, or just a silly joke, but nevertheless there seems to be more characters that appreciate Tom than dislike him. Even Sahara refers to him as King Nook. So, after his terrible experience with Red, managing to make some lifelong friends, and deciding to adopt the Nooklings, Tom decides to return home from the city. However, after his terrible experience there, he returns with a slight change in his personality. When discussing this, Sable expresses, "When he returned, he came back a totally different soul. I still believe that if he had just clung to those sweet memories like I do, he would have shaken off the heart sickness of those city years. Memories can be sad, but they can also save you." This change in personality strained his and Sable's relationship a little bit, as Sable could see that Tom was basically heartbroken after his dreams were crushed. After his return, a part of him would be forever changed, but they still continued to speak to and care for one another, and it's heavily implied that they may both have romantic feelings for each other. Even during this conversation you have with Sable about him, you can suggest that he sent her an engagement ring in the mail, and in New Leaf, Tom can be seen blushing when Lyle brings up Sable. It's been many years now and we haven't seen much development to their relationship, likely because Tom and Sable are usually both very busy and because Sable is so shy. But Tom, on behalf of all of us, please just marry her already. Settled back into the rural town you move to throughout most Animal Crossing games, Tom Nook tries to pursue new opportunities. It's here that he's established his first shop and quickly became a prominent figure in the community. He opens up Nook's Cranny with the little earnings he has and builds a variety of small homes for new villagers to move into, hoping to expand the town's residency and continue his honest business work. Throughout the Animal Crossing games, Tom Nook offers the player to stay in any of the homes he has built and allows them to move in straight away for free. He gives the player as much time as they please to pay him back, and even offers them a part-time job at his shop to get themselves started. He teaches them the ropes of life in town, and through his and the players' joint work in town together, and of course through his own hard work and dedication, Tom Nook is able to expand and open up multiple stores and offer various services to the townsfolk. Nook's Cranny is eventually able to upgrade to a convenience store called Nook & Go. After that, a supermarket called Nookway, until eventually it becomes a multi-story department store called Nookingtons, with a hair salon and Timmy and Tommy selling furniture upstairs. Tom Nook goes from working in a beaten-up old shack, wearing nothing but an apron, to having his own mega store and wearing a fancy suit to work in both Wild World and City Folk. He even goes on to hand over his shop to the Nooklings and start up his own housing service in Animal Crossing New Leaf. Of course, some may say he couldn't have done it without your help, but the fact remains that he did work very hard for it, and I definitely feel like he's deserving of the rewards. It's clear to see how hard he was working, especially in the original Animal Crossing game, when you, the player, can wake him up during the time his shop is usually closed by banging on the doors 3 times with a shovel. Tom Nook will be in his pajamas and still allow you to shop. He'll move around so much slower and sell his items for cheaper because he's just so sleepy. I just think it's so cute. After his successful years in business throughout the original Animal Crossing games, including Wild World, City Folk, and New Leaf, Tom Nook decides to embark on a brand new adventure. Tom decides he wants to try fix up and live on an entirely deserted island. Through his new company, Nook Inc., Tom and the Nooklings offer up getaway packages to customers with a desire to start a new life in a small community and help supervise life over the island. You move to this island with the intention of building it up together. You become the resident representative and work with Tom to help create a wonderful place to live. At the start, Tom offers you a tent to sleep in, a smartphone to use, and will wait patiently for you to pay off your debt to him in whatever time you can. Living on the island is celebrated as a group, and Tom Nook is more than happy to share the spotlight with you, and even encourages you to name the island yourself. It's clear to see that small town life and honest work was the right life decision for Tom, as now he's clearly much more relaxed, happy, and carefree. Throughout his time on the island, he'll give you free access to his crafting table, offer to help you expand your home, and help you move and decorate your fellow villagers' homes and the entire island island too. And no longer does he dedicate his whole life to working, following you endlessly around his shop, but now sports a comfy loose shirt and shorts and can be seen relaxing in a chair, doing stretches, drinking coffee, reading, and even playing a little bit of golf now and then. It all seems like a well-deserved break for Mr. Nook. Tom Nook's great reputation and long-kept friendships all come in handy during your time in New Horizons, as many of Tom's good friends will come to the island to do business or even to move in. The Able sisters travel to the island to sell their clothes and eventually decide to reopen up their original store right there on the island. This could be because you've been earning them so much money every time they visit, but it could also be simply because Sable and Mabel wish to be nearby Tom. Even the third Able sister, Laybell, regularly visits the island to see her sisters and sell her own clothes too. After collecting many different artifacts, Tom will call his friend Blathers to come check them out, and Blathers decides to set up a tent and forms his very own museum on the island too, eventually inviting his best friend Brewster to come along and open up a coffee shop on the island as well. Tom creates a special May Day celebration event where you can take part in a maze challenge, which his good friend Rover decides to take part in too, gifting you a lovely suitcase with references to the previous Animal Crossing games all over it. Tom is very good friends with Isabelle, who eventually comes to the island to help take care of some of his duties, like the island morning announcements, and they work together every single day inside the resident services building. Tom Nook is also friends with Harvey, who decides to offer direct transport to his own island, which you can use to decorate, take cute photos, and see even more of Tom Nook's old friends and characters from the previous games, including Harriet, who used to have her own salon inside Nookington's. Tom Nook seems to attract all of his friends to the island and helps make it a really lovely place to live. However, despite his hard-earned success, Tom Nook has faced a lot of criticism over the years. Some have accused him of being greedy or of taking advantage of his customers. Some are dissatisfied with his high mortgage prices. But others, including myself, would argue that he's simply a savvy businessman with a big heart of gold. I remember first coming into the online Animal Crossing community as a kid and seeing all the memes and jokes made online. The community was, and still is, filled with the same comments. Tom Nook is stealing all my money. Tom Nook is a greedy capitalist. And one of the most popular phrases, Tom Nook the crook. This phrase especially was very popular in the Animal Crossing community before the New Leaf days. When researching this, I came across Reddit threads of others discussing this topic and basically explaining it by saying that a lot of the players were kids and didn't know the concept of loans or mortgages, and so pinpointed Tom as the villain in the game because they were unable to make progress without paying him any money. I suppose he was sort of seen like Moneybags in Spyro, but maybe it's because I grew up in poverty, and so the idea of being gifted my own house was just amazing to me, especially since I didn't even have to pay for it straight away. But I always saw him as a really kind caregiver in the Animal Crossing world. He's the one who welcomed me into town, set me up with a home to do what I want with and customize to be my own, and then set me on my way without trying to trick me into giving him all my money. To me, it always seemed like Tom couldn't help but laugh at your lack of knowledge when it comes to money in the original Animal Crossing game, and that's why he sets you up working for him, to try and teach you a little bit of how money works. When you think of it, you come to town with only 1,000 bells in your pocket in most of the games, which isn't even enough to buy a new outfit or wallpaper. It's us, the player character, that acts strangely with money, because why would you move somewhere new with no money and no home prepared for you anyway? It's no wonder Tom feels sorry for us and tries his best to set us up for a proper adult life. Without him, we'd be sleeping on the street. But some others on this thread also agreed that the joke came from the earlier games, when he seemed much sneakier. He would upgrade your house for you, but then only tell you the price it would cost afterwards, basically making you feel trapped into a loan you never agreed to pay. I can understand this point, as it is true. Tom usually doesn't tell you how much things will cost until they're already done. However, Tom never nags you to pay him back at all, and you can live your happy life in town or the island for years without ever paying him a single bell. So in the end, does this argument even really matter? And sure, some of Tom's prices may be high, but what do you expect when you ask for a 5-bedroom house built entirely by himself, with a custom paint job on the roof or entirely new fencing and wall designs in New Leaf, all completely finished and built in less than 24 hours? And it's not like Tom rushes you to pay him back. He always offers up the player's first home to them completely free, usually including some sort of radio, diary, or bed inside too. Of course, he does say that he expects payment in return eventually, but he doesn't come knocking on your door begging for money or trying to scam you out of it like some of the other Animal Crossing characters. Neither does he ask you to pay back your home loan to him instead of spending it elsewhere, even though he likely witnesses you sprinting by him to spend thousands of bells on designer clothes clothes from Gracie whenever they visit town. He simply waits patiently, buys all the weird weeds and bugs and fish you sell to him, and gives you all the time in the world to relax and build an honest life for yourself, which is actually incredibly generous. Quoting this article from The Verge, it says from the New Horizons producer Hisashi Nagami's point of view, Tom Nook isn't necessarily greedy. Instead, he believes the character's money-centric nature is a sign of responsibility. He's an adult, he says, so he's very careful with money. More important, according to Nagami, is that Nook's existence is the backbone of the entire Animal Crossing experience. If players didn't have those huge loans to pay off, they wouldn't spend so much time fishing, catching bugs, and doing other things to earn money. It's one of the biggest motivations that users have to continue playing Animal Crossing, and Tom Nook is the man behind that motivation, he explains. And New Horizons director Aikyo Goku also believes players could try to be more understanding of Tom Nook. Even if we borrow money from him and it takes time to pay him back, he never gets angry, he never gets mad, she says. So if we could all try to be a little more responsible and pay him back, it might make him a little bit happier. And fun fact, in New Horizons, Tom Nook reveals that his favourite KK Slider song is KK Lament. This song has a really sad sounding melody and is based on a style of Japanese music called enka. This type of music can be described as sentimental ballads, blending an almost lounge-like vocal performance with emotional themes like love, loss, death, and other hardships. This being Tom's favourite song after all these years really shows his deep regrets and sadness due to his past, and possibly highlights the struggle he went through at a young age. It's not like his favourite song is KK Bubblegum and he sat there laughing while stealing all your money. This is a man that still feels very, very sad inside about his past and is trying to make a nice life for himself and those around him. So it's very clear to me that Tom has a big heart and feels very deeply about everything he does. Despite this, you may still view Tom as a little bit greedy with the amount of money he asks from you as the player. It seems to be highly debated whether Tom can possibly be a good person if he's trying to become so rich. Even in the Animal Crossing City Folk guidebook, he's described as a kind raccoon with a heart of gold. Well, pockets of gold, even though he only owns a shop, if you know what I mean. However, you can actually learn when speaking to him that Tom Nook donates 90% of his personal earnings to an orphanage several towns away. So all that spending you're doing at his shop, majority of that money is going to a great cause. And just for reference, that means for every 10,000 bells you spend on any of his shop's items, Tom Nook and the Nooklings are actually only earning 1,000 bells. He really isn't as greedy as you'd expect. But don't worry too much if you still plan on clinging to your idea of him as a brutal businessman. He also explains that he's aware of his reputation as such, and that he doesn't really mind if the news of his true demeanour gets around or not, stating, but we must keep this between us. I have a reputation to uphold, I've heard some folks believe I'm a ruthless and heartless businessman. Perhaps I can see the value of having a boogeyman everyone can unite against. During an E3 2019 interview about Animal Crossing New Horizons, Mr. Nagami and Ms. Kyogoku, who helped create the game, were asked who their favourite character was. In response, Mr. Nagami said, "It's really hard to choose one. If I have to pick one, I think it's Tom Nook." This is background information on Tom Nook, but he was unsuccessful earlier in life. Because of this early failure, he has this sense of sadness to him. This is something you're able to learn a little bit more about in Animal Crossing Wild World. So, although he may seem like a strict capitalist to some, you do have to notice that he'll wait forever without adding any interest to your loan. He's a man with a huge heart and somebody that you can really depend on. To which Miss Kyogoku followed up by saying, "I love Tom Nook. Even though sometimes he upsets me, I do have to admit that because of him and his hard work, I have a pretty good life in the game." In conclusion, it's clear that Tom Nook's legacy extends far beyond just running a successful business. He's well known by many of the other characters for his close friendships and relationships within the community, and from many people who actually worked on the game and many of the in-game characters' points of view, it seems that he values loyalty and kindness above all else, often going out of his way to help those in need and trying to help his local community as much as possible. And according to those who are closest to him, he not only has the smart mind of a businessman, but the pure heart of a dreamer. So however you choose to view Tom Nook, whether it's as the heartless businessman or the sweet guy with a heart of gold, at least now you can do so whilst knowing his entire past and backstory. And after discovering it all, it really is no wonder that Tom Nook was able to become such a beloved figure in the world of Animal Crossing. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I love talking about Tom Nook as I actually saw him as a sort of father figure as a kid. I know, clearly I have some sort of childhood issues there, but the way he takes care of you when you first come to town and sets you up for your life there, it's just always been one of the most heartwarming and nostalgic parts of the Animal Crossing games for me. And it's just nice to have someone in town care about your well-being so much. Plus he's so cute. Like, look at his sleepy eyes, that big belly. He looks like he'd give the greatest hugs. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you thought of this video and if you'd like to see more videos videos of this style on the channel? If so, let me know which character or topic you'd like to see me talk about next. And if you'd like to watch similar videos like this from me, I have a video about the importance of Brewster in the Animal Crossing series on my channel that you may like, and a little bit of an older one about my issue with the villagers in Animal Crossing New Horizons, so feel free to check those out if you haven't already. And you can also just watch me play the game and a bunch of other cozy games on my channel too, so hopefully you can find something else to enjoy while you're here. But before I go for today, I would like to say an extra special thank you to my lovely Patreon supporters for supporting me this month. You're all the sweetest angels and I'm just so grateful for your support. Thank you all so much. And thank you so much to all of you for clicking on this video and for watching. If you enjoyed it, please do consider leaving a like on the video or subscribing because it means the world to me. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on Tom Nook. Is he evil? Is he lovely? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I hope you're having a super lovely day and I'll speak to you all in my next video. Bye!